Welcome to ThinkTech on OC16, Hawaii's weekly newscast on things that matter to tech and to Hawaii. I'm Nicole Horry.
And I'm Maria Kashem.
In our show this time, we'll take a look at Israel's new energy discoveries and how they will change the geopolitics of the Middle East, Europe, and the rest of the world.
And we'll cover the talk show in which this was discussed by ThinkTech host David Day with his guest Reuven Azar, Israel's Deputy Ambassador to the U.S.
We sat with David Day to get some context on what he was doing in this coverage.
When we did a program on Afghanistan with one of our local experts here in Hawaii, and this is Professor Abdul Khan out at Leeward, and during the preparation for that show or while we were on the air, we were talking about Al-Qaeda. And we got into a conversation about the Al-Qaeda operations in the rebel group in Syria. And this was at about the time when there were a lot of discussions in Washington going on about funding this rebel group or getting involved with the rebel group. And I think there was some evidence that our State Department was quietly through the back door funding the rebel group. And that may be a piece of what Ambassador Chris Stevens was doing in Benghazi, was funneling arms back through the Turks into the rebels. And in my discussion with Professor Khan, as we were digging down into the situation involving Al-Qaeda's, what was left of Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, he said to me, you don't really want to dig into the rebel situation in Syria, because I want to tell you that there are some groups associated with Al-Qaeda or working within that rebel component, if you will, in Syria, that are really bad actors. They're way worse than Al-Qaeda. And that just kind of stuck in my head.
That's quite a statement to make.
So if you follow me on this, the next show that we did that got into this, and I know this doesn't seem related, but it is. The next show that we did was with another one of our local experts, doctor, professor, entrepreneur, Raphael Boritzer. And so in talking with Dr. Boritzer, what he was laying out was kind of the history of the Middle East and also the enormous energy finds, developments, both in terms of offshore gas fields, natural gas fields, as well as onshore oil shale reserves that equal or surpass the energy reserves of Saudi Arabia. And so, I mean, this puts Israel in a totally different position, Jay, than she was before. And the Israelis used to joke that, after all these years, the Lord brought us to this one place in the Middle East where there was just sand and there were no natural resources at all.
Yeah.
And now that situation is totally different. So following the Dr. Boritzer show, what we have seen is this ugly, nasty, brutal group, ISIS, break away from the Syrian rebels and advanced across the border into Iraq. And the official name of this group is the Islamic State of Iraq and Greater Syria, or sometimes it's known as the Islamic State of Iraq and Al-Sham, shortened to ISIS. As we look at that movement and the brutality that this Sunni group was forcing down or coming down on other Muslims, I began to think, my God, Israel is really in the crosshairs. She's got a stated plan of the development of a caliphate, just restoring back from the 7th, 6th centuries into an Islamic caliphate that would stretch from the Persian Gulf all the way across, including Israel, Egypt, and across northern Africa. And so the establishment of that caliphate means that Israel's got to go. I wondered if how is this energy piece going to affect the geopolitics of the region?
Now, let's take a look at some of the high points of the talk show with Reuven Azar.
The picture that you have painted is that Israel is now energy independent, will be for the foreseeable future, and has the possibility of becoming a major energy exporting nation. Fairly said?
Yes, certainly.
Okay. Now, given that we have this jihadi spring and this implosion of many of our oil-producing countries in the Middle East, all kinds of violence, what is this likely to do, or how do you see this impacting the geopolitics of the Middle East?
Well, from our perspective, basically there are common threats and common opportunities with our neighbors. Basically what is happening is that because of the threat of Iran, especially Iran that is trying to seek nuclear capabilities that would allow it to create a nuclear weapon, the threat of the jihadists and the threat of the Muslim Brotherhood, this is bringing Israel and its neighbors closer together. First of all, it's bringing closer Israel and Jordan. The Kingdom of Jordan has suffered heavily from flow of refugees from Syria. It is now having a direct border with ISIS. And we are really ramping up our cooperation, especially on military, intelligence, and strategic issue and strategic aspects with the Kingdom of Jordan.
Well, this is fascinating.
We are cooperating in intelligence and other ways with our neighbors in Egypt, especially in the context of fighting the anarchy and the terrorist organizations in the Sinai Peninsula. And basically we are having tacit cooperation with some of the Gulf countries. Now, all these countries are Arab countries that find it difficult to engage with us openly sometimes because they are caught in this war of civilizations that is happening, and Israel is still being used as a token of attacking, Muslims attacking each other, saying that they are cooperating with the Zionists, cooperating with the Israelis. So they cannot be, too open about this cooperation. But basically, we are cooperating in order to try to create stability under this crescent of chaos. We are trying to create an arc of stability. Now, in addition to that, there are opportunities because the energy can really be a bridge, not only between us and the Palestinians and the Jordanians, with whom we are negotiating deals to supply gas, but also with Cyprus, which is our neighbor, an island neighbor to the west in the Mediterranean. So this really, the energy is creating opportunities. Now, we will have to use these resources really to build the capabilities to defend ourselves from all this range of threats that we've been talking about. And this is something very interesting because, we are at the heart of the Middle East and we have experience in fighting these extremist forces. So today, we have concentration of terrorists that are coming from all over the world, coming from Europe, coming from East Asia, coming from the Caucasus. They're all coming to fight in Syria and Iraq. They are creating a terror threat for the world, for the United States as well. And we are finding ourselves in a situation in which countries, security establishments from all countries are flocking into Israel in order to try and have Israel share with them the intelligence they have, the methods that Israel has developed in fighting terrorism. So in that respect, we have become very popular.
The oil and gas finds in Israel and Israel's experience in fighting terrorism, those two seemingly unrelated topics mesh together to form if I can use the term, like a relationship glue that allows Israel to perhaps build relationships and friendships that she was never able to do before.
Right.
Am I correct about that? Is that right?
Right. And you know what? This is not the only aspect. There is a third very important aspect, and that is the water issue. Israel has managed to develop technology that will allow us to solve the water problems in Israel. You know that Israel is an arid zone.
Right.
We are lacking resources in the area, and water was in the past a reason for wars. But this is no longer the case, because Israel basically has developed technology to desalinate water in a very cheap price. It's a leading power in desalination in the world, and has also managed to recycle water at rates that are uncomparable. Israel is recycling 80% of its water, of its sewage water. And actually today in Israel, we use 70% of the water that we use for agriculture. It's recycled water. So we have become also self-sufficient when it comes to food production. We are a net exporter of food. And we have capacity to produce water to an extent that today we have started to export water to our neighbors.
What you're saying is those three key items combine together to then provide a fabulous opportunity glue for Israel to begin to really develop some powerful relationships with her neighbors.
Because we know that the scope of the cooperation we can have with our neighbors is limited because of the situation. We are going to try to do whatever we can to do it. But at the end of the day, the promise for Israel is in its connections with the developed world, with the United States of America, with Europe, with Asia, the rising powers in Asia. And these are the markets that produce the large part of our income.
We also got David Day to discuss what he learned in this particular talk show and what made it special.
To really appreciate why I was so enthusiastic about his optimism, he added two other pieces of gloom that I had forgotten about. And one of them was the Iranian drive to establish their own Shiite caliphate in the same region, across that same crescent, from Iran, the Persian Gulf, all the way to the Mediterranean, including Israel. And you remember the statements of Ahmadinejad that he was going to blow Israel off the face of the earth. So now you have a completely different movement, different cultural group, but again, Israel in the crosshairs. And then the third one was, that the Deputy Ambassador pointed out, was don't forget about the Muslim Brotherhood. That's another Sunni group that wants to establish a caliphate and eliminate Israel. This nugget that we uncovered in this show was that because Israel has this energy wealth, that she has her own energy needs taken care of for the distant future, and that she is going to be an exporter, a net exporter of energy. You put that over here. And the second piece is Israel has developed the technology for recycling water. So now she's agriculturally independent and she can export agriculture. And that water technology is needed by the other Arab countries. The next technology was in cyber, both defense and offense, cybersecurity. And all countries, including the United States, need that. And the fourth one, perhaps the most important. Israel has had enormous experience since her inception in dealing with terrorism and countering that terrorism. And so what the Deputy Ambassador disclosed to me in this show that I thought was so exciting was that if you take all of those items, the energy, the ability to handle terrorism, the experience with terrorism, the recycling of water, and the cyber technology, and you package all that together, he said what that's doing is that's attracting relationships that Israel could never imagine happening before.
What you describe is the contrast of these countries. They're faced with the benefits of a relationship with Israel and the West versus ISIS, which is returning to some primitive time and violent time, and where no one has personal security. The choice will be easy, I think, I hope.
Out of all that blackness and all that negativity, there was some real excitement that was saying, hey, there's opportunity here of building new relationships because, as you pointed out, we don't want to go back to the 7th century. We're not going that far.
Early on, ThinkTech felt that Hawaii must study Asia to be global. Hence, our regular talk shows on Asia in Review.
As time went by, we began to feel that for Hawaii to be global, as in ThinkTech Global, we need to study the Middle East, hence our growing interest in talk shows on what we call West of Asia.
The bottom line is that Hawaii needs to be truly global. After all, we're a polyglot of peoples and cultures. We know the need for cross-cultural understanding and collaboration, and we know the way. Let's use that knowledge for our own advantage.
Traveling helps, but it's more than that. It's being aware of the distant horizon every day. A group of islands located in the mid-Pacific cannot shrink from global awareness. We need to know global events and sea changes.
The burden of our isolation is the need to have a greater awareness of things happening far away, and from that to learn world-class resilience and self-reliance.
It's not for curiosity, it's to know the latest thinking, the latest technologies, the latest best practices for energy, climate change, and food and water security.
We need to learn everything we can from everywhere we can so that we can be the best of the best and the most sustainable in good times and bad.
That's why the energy discovery made by Israel and the effects of that discovery on Israel, its neighbors in the region, and other nations around the world is something we want to study.
Just as Israel's discoveries can improve its leverage inside and out, so Hawaii's energy best practices and technology can improve our life at home and our trade and relations with the mainland and Asia.
The reality is that between imported fossil fuel and imported food, we send nearly $20 billion away every year, which is actually far more than the tourism industry brings to our state. It's time that we found a way to turn that around.
If Hawaii can discover renewable energy in quantities worthy not only of use here, but also for export, that would change everything. If Hawaii can grow its diversified agriculture to the point where we're not just feeding ourselves, but also exporting food, that would change everything too.
So that's what we can learn from Going Global with David Day and ThinkTech Global. Stay tuned for more on ThinkTech and join the movement to make Hawaii self-reliant, not only a global citizen, but a global leader. We have the goods, now we have to do what it takes.
You can only imagine what would happen if we kept that $20 billion here for infrastructure, for housing, for social programs, for unliquidated liabilities. To find that other places like Israel are doing this already should be an encouragement to us, a model for us to follow. And now, let's take a look at our ThinkTech calendar of events going forward.
ThinkTech broadcasts video and audio for all of our talk shows live on the internet from 1 to 5 p.m. every weekday afternoon. If you missed a show or want to replay or share any show, they're all archived on YouTube.
Visit thinktechhawaii.com for our live stream and YouTube links, or to join our email list and get these links and advisories on our upcoming shows.
We also invite you to be part of our live audience at our downtown studio in Pioneer Plaza. Contact Jay at thinktechhawaii.com. Raise your awareness in every way on ThinkTech.
On Tuesday, July 1st, ThinkTech will present a gubernatorial forum on Kaka'ako at the Capitol Auditorium. At this program, candidates will have an opportunity to express their views about development in Kaka'ako. The forum is free, so come one, come all, to hear what they have to say. After all, Kaka'ako is the most important development project our state has ever had.
Then on Thursday, July 22nd, ThinkTech will join with the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum to present the Hawaii Clean Energy Day program for 2014, which will be at the downtown Laniakea YWCA. You can sign up to attend this program on hawaiienergypolicy.hawaii.edu.
And now, here's this week's ThinkTech commentary.
I'm Jay Fidel with this ThinkTech commentary. Hawaiian Electric wants to build a $40 million, 12-megawatt photovoltaic farm on 40 acres near its Kahe generating station. Subject to PUC approval, construction would start in January and finish in October 2015. During the life of the project, HECO says it would reduce the overall cost of generating electricity on Oahu by $64 million and would displace 1.8 million gallons of oil every year. This project will be done by the utility itself. Are utility-owned solar farms the next best thing? We've had amazing growth in homeowner rooftop solar, reflecting our desire to be independent and have the option of going off the grid. After the Clean Energy Initiative was rolled out in 2008, the utility stepped back from generating its own renewables. They left it to the public, and the installer industry that serves the public has certainly stepped up to that on PV. But when you think about it, the utility could have and could now be generating renewables, especially PV themselves. Why not utility-owned solar farms everywhere? You get the experience factor, jobs, the economies of scale in buying and maintaining these large PV installations. The utility could bring a lot to solar farms. Indeed, you don't have the interconnect problems that make homeowners and the installer industry so unhappy. The utility determines all the interconnection issues and buys the interconnection smart grid equipment. You avoid fossil fuel, you can stabilize and ultimately lower costs, and you don't have all the financing and tax issues and risks that come with PV installations on rooftops. Furthermore, you don't have the inequity of the tax credit for a given few homeowners and the inequity of net energy metering at retail energy costs. Sure, you have less independence for the homeowner, but less expense too, and no need to worry about the panels and the holes in the roof and the long-term viability of the PV installers. The utility handles it all, and the process is seamless and painless for the ratepayer and the taxpayer. And it's democratic. Everyone benefits, and everyone pays for the installation. The 5-megawatt farm at Kahi Point is relatively small compared to the 1,200-megawatt base load for Oahu. But maybe we'll see more of these farms on Oahu and on Kauai. It seems so much easier on the system and on the public to do it this way. The utility can plan ahead for maintenance and replacement when necessary. They don't have the risk of relying on installers that may go out of business or PV suppliers that can't be found. Sure, it perpetuates the power of the utility. Some people want to see the utility go away, but that's not realistic either. The question is whether the utility-owned solar farm model can coexist with the developer-owned solar farm and residential rooftop solar. What impediments would there be to building more utility-owned solar farms around the state? The utility-owned solar farm model seems to avoid a lot of the issues we've had with residential PV. But whatever the mix of residential and utility-owned PV, it remains for the utility to improve the grid, to take more renewables, and add new technology for storage. Homeowner residential solar has been declining over the past couple of years. Let's give utility-owned solar farms a chance and see what happens. In fact, that may be the next best thing and may help us get to where we want to go a lot more efficiently. I'm Jay Fidel with this ThinkTech commentary.
We'll be right back to wrap up this week's edition of ThinkTech, but first we want to thank our underwriters.
Castle & Cooke Hawaii, 160 years of investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state.
COLLATERAL Analytics, a Hawaii-based tech company empowering the real estate industry to make better informed property investment decisions.
The Foreign Trade Zone, bringing the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs.
GALEN Ho, a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Maui Electric and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island.
Hawaii Energy, your energy conservation and efficiency program, created to help Hawaii residents and businesses adopt a clean energy lifestyle.
The Hawaii Energy Policy Forum, incorporating diverse perspectives into the design of a forward-looking energy strategy.
Hawaii Gas, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future.
Hawaii Pacific Health, bringing technology and teamwork together to transform healthcare in Hawaii.
The High-Tech Development Corporation, the state's leading technology agency.
The SHIDLER Family Foundation, supporting many educational, charitable, and cultural organizations in Hawaii, including ThinkTech. Okay, Maria, that wraps up this week's edition of ThinkTech. Remember, you can watch ThinkTech on OC16 several times every week. Can't get enough of it, just like Jay Fidel does. For additional times, check out OC16.tv.
Naturally, Nicole. For lots more ThinkTech videos and for underwriting and sponsorship opportunities on ThinkTech on OC16, visit thinktechhawaii.com, be a guest or volunteer, a producer or studio intern, and help us reach Hawaii.
I'm Nicole Hoare. Thanks so much for joining us on ThinkTech. You can watch the show throughout the week and tune in next Sunday evening for our next important weekly episode. Aloha, everyone.
I'm Maria Kashem. See you next time.
ThinkTech is thought-provoking and philosophical.